Hey, my friends, it's Matt. This is my son. Thanks for hanging out with me on my YouTube channel. In my last video, I reviewed this stack of study Bibles plus this bonus one down here. In this video, we're going to review these 5 Bibles, and things are going to get a little bit wild because one of these Bibles didn't work out the way I wanted it to, and we're just going to talk very, very candidly about that. So let's pick up right where we left off. I'm going to give you the lightning fast review, just flashing it up on screen, of the Bibles we've already covered so you can refamiliarize yourself with all of the metrics for how we're doing this thing. And then we're going to start weighing weighing. See what I did? We're going to start weighing figuratively as well as literally the rest of these right after that. All right, here we go. This is a good study Bible. This is the most paint by numbers through the front door, what you think of when you picture a study Bible on the desk this time around. It's got facts and figures and charts and full color, and it looks nice, and also goo! Thomas Nelson. Let me tell you what, they come with the words of all of these different publishers. I have to get my $1.25 Menards reader's glasses out that I impulse bought while I was buying lumber to even see what's going on. Seriously, this is fine print, and I see pretty well, but this is mean fine print. There is so much knowledge and information. Oh, wow, that does not work at that range. I can see it all. There's so much packed in here, and that is great, but in terms of the actual artistry of it and the wayfinding, I don't think it's quite as strong as other study Bibles. If you want just mountains of data and commentary, this is going to be great for that. If you are particularly loyal to the King James family tree of translation, then I think this is going to be a great fit for you. If you're not particularly loyal and don't specifically want the New King James Version, I think you can get more out of the ESV study Bible or even the NIV study Bible, though it's much weaker in terms of the notes and commentary that goes along with it. Or I think you might like some of the other big picture standard issue study Bibles that we've talked about before. Either way, this one's pretty cool. Make a note of what this weighs because you and I have an ongoing bet. Come on, heavy, 8 pounds, 16 pounds. This is a nice Bible, and I'm excited to talk to you about it. This is the Archaeology Study Bible. It's English Standard Version. It's by Crossway, and I want to show you the actual cover without this little jacket on it. Can I give you this, pal? Almost ripped it. Right? Look at that. It's beautiful with the embossing and the foil work here. I think this is lovely. And then you open it up, and you discover that it actually provides value. I wasn't even trying to go to 1 Kings, but look at this thing. I mean, it's showing you actual artifacts, so you're seeing with your eyes things made by the hands of people who were alive on the page. There's just this sense of connection through this Bible with what was going on in the first place. So when I did this, I was working on Esther, which I've worked on a lot this year. And right at the beginning of the book of Esther, I see that there is an article that says more or less contributions from archaeology to our understanding of Esther. And it gives you a pretty good overview of what we know and what we don't know and how to read it and what we've dug out of the dirt over the centuries. You turn the page, you get started on the book of Esther. And you know what, buddy? Here, I'm going to give you a little homework. This is an ESV Concise study Bible. So this is sort of an abbreviated version of their standard issue notes. Go to Esther chapter 1 for me. We're going to compare notes and see if these are better and more detailed. But you get this article right at the beginning here. Esther opens with a statement about the setting. It's King Ahasuerus or Xerxes, and ruled from his citadel in Susa. Well, Susa, what do we know about that? It's an ancient capital. You get this great article right here with a picture that tells you right off the bat that, bummer, it's all ruined. You can't really glean much from what's left of the physical setting of this story from almost 2,500 years ago. And so you get a great article about that, but then you turn the page and they chase that with the best aerial overview photo I've ever seen of another Persian capital from this era, Persepolis, which is exactly the right thing to show next if you want to give people an archaeologically informed overview of what the setting of this place was like. So they do things that make sense. The right notes seem to happen at the right time. And what I have noticed is that some of these ESV Bibles will use roughly the same notes in different editions, which is fine. There's no accusation there. But here they're holding it out as being a specifically archaeologically informed version of the notes and resources. So I want to know how much better it is. Here's the note that we get in Esther 1:1 about the setting. Xerxes the first, king of Persia, 486 to 465 BC. One of Persia's 4 capital cities is Susa. It was used in winter. Well, that's all you get. Okay. Now let's see what you get here. The name Ahasuerus is linguistically equivalent to Xerxes, who ruled Persia from 486 to 465. The land around the Indus Valley in modern-day Pakistan was known as India, and the land just south of Egypt was known as Ethiopia. Those are the boundaries of the empire that are mentioned in verse 1. 127 provinces. Persia had as many as 31 satrapies, so this larger number must represent smaller units within a satrap, such as Judea. I mean, this is wonderful. And then it gets into Susa. It was a capital city of the province of Elam that served as one of Persia's 4 capitals. I mean, you get the idea here? They're really able to take the time to spell this out and then start to offer details about what's still in place and what's not. And so we're getting extra biblical details once you get into the notes on verse 5. In verse 9, we meet Xerxes' wife, Vashti, and they do exactly what they ought to do, which is go and dig into how we know about Xerxes' wives from a historical perspective and where Vashti and Esther and Amestris, his known wife from the historian Herodotus, how all that fits together. Oh my goodness! It's just so very, very good and a very worthy companion to the one book that I worked on with it, that being Esther. So I think this is a lovely presentation. I think the notes are worthwhile. The resources from an archaeological perspective seem to hit when they should. And while this might not be your go-to study Bible, I think it's a great companion for sure. Lad, what does it weigh? Seriously, that's heavier than the last one? No, that's lighter than the last one, but just barely. What was the last one?
It was 3.31.
I'm embarrassed. Okay, well, let's just keep going and pretend that didn't happen. This one I'm wrestling out of the box here is a little different than anything I've ever had before or reviewed before. This is the Reformation Study Bible. It's an ESV. It's the student edition, but it's not by Crossway. This little logo here is associated with Ligonier Ministries, and they're a long-time teaching ministry with just brilliant minds involved, very much associated with the Reformed tradition. I am empathetic to Reformed thought. I don't know that I'd say that's exactly my tradition. I see it as one cohesive understanding of the text. I tend to get along pretty well with people coming from this persuasion, and we tend to have fruitful conversations where we might see things a tiny bit differently. I'm just closing my biases here because, I mean, the name of this Bible kind of throws down a gauntlet, right? This is definitely coming from a certain perspective. And so what are you going to get? Is this going to be a beginning to end, like almost a lectionary or a catechism to get somebody properly oriented to Reformation thought? Or is it going to have a little lighter touch? And I was surprised to find that it does have a little lighter touch. The impulse, the temptation to put gigantic articles in here, deeply explaining the finer points of Reformed or even Calvinist thought from ages past, they resist it. And instead, it's just pretty tight little helpful articles. I did most of my work with this Bible in the New Testament. Pretty tight, pretty restrained little articles that more or less give you a reiteration of what the text says in the larger context of Reformation assumptions. Now, in this video, I don't have time to get into everything about the difference between Catholic thought and Reformation thought, Protestant thought, Reformed thought, Lutheran thought, but this has a much wider reach than I would have anticipated. Honestly, I think a Catholic could pick up this Bible and, with the exception of maybe only a couple of articles here or there, they're just going to read it and appreciate it and see that it's the Word of God with reasonable, helpful little notes that don't say too much, but kind of say just enough, presented boldly but simply in a way that works really dang well. I was surprised by the restraint and surprised by how much they were able to get done with so few words. And I think this is a Bible that I would recommend. Pretty cool. What does it weigh?
Ooh, lighter.
A little bit lighter. All right, good stuff, man. I've been hinting for a while in this discussion that there was one Bible over here in this pile where things were going to get a little bit, quote, spicy. There was one Bible here that I was going to maybe not totally recommend or be excited about. And probably most of you are like, well, it's going to be a Catholic one, obviously, because you're Protestant and it says Catholic on it. And unfortunately, you're right, but not for the reasons you might think. This is the Catholic Study Bible, 3rd edition, New American Bible Revised Edition by Oxford. My gripe with this isn't that this is too Catholic. It's that I don't think it's Catholic enough. I don't think this Bible is reflective of Catholics or the church's understanding of the Bible. And I think a Catholic who gets this, or most Catholics who buy this, are going to be disappointed with what they get. More on that in just a minute. First, is this still your pick for the heaviest Bible out of the whole lot?
Yes.
So you're not changing it?
Nope.
Okay, well, let's find out if you were right. It has to be 3 pounds, 12 ounces. I'm just kidding. We're going to leave that tension bubble unpopped. We're going to do that a little bit later on. Here's what my plan was. I had used a Catholic Bible earlier this year. It wasn't mine. I had access to it for a nice chunk of time, and I worked on Matthew with it. I remember coming away thinking, this is really good. I mean, of course, I went right to Matthew 16 and Matthew 18, the two places in the book of Matthew where Jesus mentions the church, and Catholics tend to look at that and say, Peter is uniquely affirmed by Jesus as uniquely holding the keys and this authority, and that sort of explains the Catholic understanding of apostolic succession through the ages, and it explains their ecclesiology, and it's a point of divergence with Protestants who then look at the other place Jesus mentions the church 2 chapters later in Matthew 18, where it looks like that same authority is handed off to all of the apostles, and that undergirds the Protestant understanding. It's one of many things that undergirds the Protestant understanding of the priesthood of all believers. And sure enough, the notes in that Catholic Bible, it fell along church convictional historic lines, just like I would expect. It should. It's a Catholic Bible. It should say Catholic things and interpret it in Catholic ways. I'm not freaking out or threatened by the fact that we don't see that the same way. I get it. That's okay. I was all pumped to go and get that Bible and put it in front of you and be like, hey, I actually think this is a really good Bible and I recommend it. And I think a Protestant could probably use this. You might chuckle at a couple of things or be like, well, we disagree there. But for the most part, you're just going to get good resources about the Bible that'll be really useful. But I forgot which Bible it was. So I confidently went and ordered this one thinking that was it. And it wasn't this one. I think I remember which one it is now, and I've got that over here on my phone. I'll recommend a couple of Catholic study Bibles I like better as we get a bit further along. But this is my vision for what was going to happen here. It was clever. I mean, it was going to be a moment that we were about to have. What I was going to do is put the Reformation study Bible right next to this Catholic study Bible, and then I was going to talk about this one. Well, I guess I did talk about this one. And I was going to be like, look, yeah, there's some 5 solas, pretty clear Reformation stuff in here, but for the most part, what you get is just really good cross-referencing, and notes that expand on the text and help you understand and connect the dots between stuff and explain some historical facts and whatnot. And there's going to be a couple parts in here where a Catholic might be like, I don't know about that. But for the most part, that would just be a very handy Bible for a Catholic that would work pretty dang well. And I wanted all of my Catholic friends who watch to be like, weird. I'm surprised I'm not angrier about that. And then I was going to flip it around and be like, and here's this great Catholic study Bible that I found. And it's the exact same thing, but the other way around. And then all of my non-Catholic friends who are watching this, you are going to feel this thing in your heart, and you're going to be like, wow, maybe the Venn diagram between Catholicism and creedal historic Protestant orthodoxy is full of shaded area, and maybe sometimes we obsess a little too much about the little crescent moons on the outside of that are the unshaded area, and that's just crazy. And then like some music would start to play, and all the brown grass would turn green, and we start hugging each other, and we'd be like, there, we've healed the historic divide among Christians forever with this Bible review video that'll be watched by literally dozens of people. It was going to be amazing, but I got the wrong Bible, so I'm sorry. We're just going to have to continue to have division in the church, and then someone else, I guess, is going to have to solve it. It is a bit ambitious. Now, here's what I don't like about this Bible. When I say it's not Catholic enough, what I mean is it has a really low view of Scripture. And the Catholics I know have a really high view of Scripture. They would articulate that differently than my Protestant friends and I would. They have a more optimistic view about the church's role in superintending exactly how the Bible came together. The Protestant understanding would be more that God superintended the text, and the church from all across Christendom or the Christian world discovered what was obviously Scripture. We would say that the Bible itself already demonstrates that certain authors of Scripture were calling and regarding other authors of the New Testament and what they wrote Scripture as well. So we see that a little different. But what I mean by low view of Scripture is that really this edition, I would say, is the most oriented toward critical scholarship toward the text in sort of a 1800s and 1900s higher criticism kind of way of any Bible I've ever seen. It assumes that the stuff that the Bible says is to be brought into question and not terribly reliable. Here's what I mean by that. First of all, on the front end of this Bible, you get this massive, massive amount of material that talks a little bit about the church's view of the Bible. It's very interesting. It references some stuff from Vatican II about the reliability of the Bible, and then it goes on right after that in the same article to be like, but that doesn't mean the Bible's accurate or reliable or that it is what it says it is. That to me felt like a really odd way to respond to what is a really very positive view of the Bible from that statement in Vatican II. So I go on to the book I've been working on, the book of Matthew, and I read through the reading guide that is situated here at the front end of the Bible, and I get turns of phrases like this right off the bat. In describing Matthew's gospel as a story, we're not implying that it has no historical basis. What? Huh? Okay, every other Bible on this desk assumes, I think very rightly and defensively, that Matthew has tons of historical basis, that it was written by somebody who was there and saw the stuff, but apparently this Bible assumes that it might have some. It doesn't have no historical basis. There could be some value in Matthew that way. Well, what the heck? Okay, so I read on a little bit. Strange as it may seem, Matthew's Jewish roots may also explain another different feature of his gospel, his strong critique of the Jewish leaders. The Jesus of Matthew's gospel blisters his opponents for their hypocrisy and lack of faith. Okay, I think the historic Christian position there is Jesus blistered his opponents. He deeply criticized the twisted up religious values of his day and held them out as being antithetical to the values of the kingdom. I mean, that's Jesus who we think did that. And it's not just in Matthew, it's in all the Gospels. The religious elites are the enemies of Jesus, and his message of the kingdom in all the Gospels. This isn't some uniquely Matthew's a Jew and he has this self-loathing complex thing, but that seems to be the underlying assumption of this Bible and the notes behind it. What are we doing? The sharp edge on Matthew's critique may stem from the tragic division. Wait, Matthew's critique? It's Jesus' critique. I don't think the official Catholic position is that some rogue guy who adopted the name Matthew decades and decades after the fact went back and worked out some vendetta he had against Jews using Jesus as his verbal puppet to do it. But that's the foundational assumption of the notes behind the Gospel of Matthew here. And now we get a nice little apology for how people have used Matthew through the years. Unfortunately, Matthew's characterization of the Jewish leaders, not Jesus. Unfortunately, Matthew's characterization of the Jewish leaders also provided an opportunity for later anti-Semitism to develop. Well, anti-Semitism is obviously bad based on the teachings of the Bible. That's stupid. But this is making it sound like it's somehow kind of Matthew's fault? Weird. It's odd moral consequentialism. It's sort of an odd apology. So you flip forward a little bit and you get this opening article on Genesis. There are two of them, one back here and one moving forward on the Pentateuch. And in both of those, you get one sentence of lip service about the idea that Moses wrote the first 5 books of the Old Testament. It's not like, historically, Christians have believed that Moses was responsible for writing these 5 books. That's obviously untenable. Now here's 8 or 12 pages on why that definitely isn't the case. It's very strange. And then it goes on to offer kind of the again, late 19th century through mid 20th century fashionable academic critique of the authorship of the first 5 books of the Bible, placing that as a product 1,000 years into the assumed future, late into the time of exile, shortly before the time of Jesus. And it's just bizarre. For many Jews and Christians through the centuries, the unity of the Pentateuch has had a simple explanation. Moses wrote it. Well, no, it's not that. And then this many pages just tells you, gives you a recap of all the different, much more complex theories for where the Pentateuch came from. But I'll tell you who seems to think that Moses wrote the Pentateuch, according to the Gospels, is Jesus, for whom the religion is named. So it's kind of an issue there. You're sort of picking a fight between two parts of the text. And I don't know. I mean, if you want to write a book on that and make your argument, fine. It just kind of seems weird to put all of that gripe or all of that issue that you might have with historical assumptions about the Bible right in the pages of the Bible and then hold it out as some very helpful resource for people who want to read and study the Bible in a Catholic context. I don't like it. I'm not done criticizing it yet. When you actually get to Matthew in the New Testament, and you get your introduction to the Gospel of Matthew over here. That was the reading guide back at the back end. It starts off by demonstrating, I think, really some short-sightedness on the part of the author about what Matthew is and where it fits. Listen to this. The position of the Gospel, according to Matthew, as the first of the 4 Gospels in the New Testament, reflects both the view that it was the first to be written, a view that goes back to the late 2nd century AD. It actually goes back earlier than that, and the esteem in which it was held by the church. So the author of this article, who then wants to guide us through a deeper understanding of Matthew, is telling us that Matthew is positioned first historically because it is believed to be the first written by the church fathers, and that is what the church fathers believed, and because it got quoted a lot. Well, there's kind of a really big third reason that Matthew is positioned at the beginning of the New Testament. Do you know what that is? Do you remember? I mean, you've studied Matthew a lot. This kid has read and memorized Matthew as a fun fall asleep at bedtime, listen to the audio book of it with David Suchet, who says it really cool. I mean, why do you think Matthew sits at the front end of the New Testament instead of one of the other Gospels?
Starts with the entire genealogy.
That's my son. And I'm really proud of him. Yes. And why does starting with the genealogy matter?
Because that bridges the gap.
And how many PhDs do you have in higher criticism and historical theology from Oxford?
0.
So you don't have any doctorate at all?
Nope.
None. How did you come to know all that stuff?
By falling asleep to an audiobook.
Yep, that's how he did it. This is knowable material, but sometimes you get so close to the math problem that you just forget to look at the obvious thing right in front of you. That is happening with this Bible. Matthew is the first positioned book in the New Testament because it offers a recap of all of the law and the prophets simply by listing the names of the people in the genealogy of Jesus, and then 4 chapters later in Matthew 5:17, having Jesus be declare that he is, well, what does Matthew 5:17 say? Do you know? Don't think that I've come to
abolish the law and the prophets, but to fulfill them.
Well done.
Thanks.
Jesus is held out in the Gospel of Matthew as being the fulfillment, the completion of all of that story. Matthew doesn't really make a lot of sense if you read it differently than that. In the same way that you kind of get a midway reset in the books of 1st and 2nd Chronicles through the narrative of the Old Testament that gives you a recap of the entire history of everything to kind of frame it up for your understanding of the stuff that happens in exile toward the end of the Old Testament. So Matthew opens with a reset of all of the history of everything for the Jewish people to get us ready for what happens with Jesus. You can't put Matthew 2nd, 3rd, or 4th in terms of the Gospels. It doesn't make any sense when you just read right through it. It goes first. And for that to not even be acknowledged, to not even consider what the actual thing we're looking at, how that informs how you read it, but instead to be so fixated on fashionable 19th and 20th century academic ivory tower criticisms of the Bible, it just doesn't impress me, and I don't see what the normal reader is going to get or what you're going to benefit from if that is the first 3 sentences of this guide that they're giving you to help you walk through Matthew. We turn a couple pages here, and we learn what the authors of this Bible think about Matthew's authorship. The ancient tradition that the author was the disciple and apostle of Jesus named Matthew is untenable because the gospel is based in large part on the gospel according to Mark. Oh, well, sure. Everybody who was alive and whose writings we still have, who talked about where the Gospel of Matthew came from early on, says it was from Matthew. There's really no dispute whatsoever from the people back then. But the people back then were dumb. If they were so smart, how come they're dead now? No. Very recently, people with pipes and patches on the elbows of their jackets, we looked into it. We looked at some papers and some different things that y'all wouldn't understand. And it turns out everybody's wrong except for us. Matthew clearly didn't write this. It was much later. Why? Well, because there's a document called Q that we've never found or seen and that nobody's ever had. But we're pretty sure it must have existed, and that means that Mark came first. And that is the assumption that exists through the rest of your guide, your Sherpa, who takes you through the rest of the book of Matthew. Now look, is it possible that there was some sort of now lost shared document, or maybe multiple documents that recorded the sayings of Jesus and the details of Jesus' life that was shared as a source between Matthew, Mark, and Luke? Yeah, of course, that's entirely reasonable. It was Jesus, and everybody knew when the Jesus thing was actually happening that this was a gigantic deal. And so I'm sure people were repeating his teachings and remembering what he said in ways that we don't do because we're technologically augmented now, and so we don't recall things the same way. We don't do memory the way people of the past did memory. I'm sure people were putting pen to paper. I'm sure Matthew put pen to paper as it was happening. He was a meticulous, detail-oriented, scribal tax collector type. Do you know any CPAs? Do they seem to keep track of things and keep records? Come on. I am confident that Matthew and many others wrote a whole bunch of stuff down that eventually were used as sources. Luke acknowledges that he did thorough research and talked to witnesses to gather his data because Luke wasn't there for the Jesus thing. He came along a little bit after. So, that's not the problem, that they suspect there might be source documents that were shared or whatever. What the problem I have is just the hand-wavy dismissal of the idea that everything that the Catholic Church has taught since forever is just clearly and obviously wrong. The same way that this Bible just immediately hand waves the idea that Moses, who Jesus affirms as the Bible of the or as the author of the Pentateuch, it just hand waves that Moses isn't the author of the Pentateuch either. So the attribution of the gospel to the disciple Matthew may have been due to his having been responsible for some of the traditions found in it, but that is far from certain. The unknown author, whom we shall continue to call Matthew for the sake of convenience, drew not only upon the gospel according to Mark, but upon a larger body of material, including the Q document. They theorize about some other documents as well, but that's just that. There's not even an exploration of, well, I mean, what about all the stuff in the text that really sounds like it's written from the perspective of a Jew who had sold out his own people to be a tax collector for the Romans, but then was transformed by an encounter with a Jew who honored all of the law and tradition and ritual of the Jewish people and caused this Levi Matthew fellow to have a complete overhaul of personality and trajectory. I mean, we don't even explore how Matthew's character lines up with the authorship of this book. We don't even explore or consider the historic belief that this is the guy who wrote the book. We don't even explore the counter argument that if you were trying to lend authority to a gospel in the early church and you were just going to lie about a later one to put a reliable name on it to impress people, why would you go with Matthew? Why wouldn't you call this Peter? Everybody thought Peter was more impressive. We don't even consider any of that stuff. I'm not saying that I know everything about where Matthew came from or that my assumptions about it are absolutely right. What I am saying is that I don't trust the guide or the guides who are going to walk us through this Bible to give us a good look at what the Bible actually is. And I don't trust them to give us a good look at what Catholic assumptions actually are. This really is the criticism edition of the Bible. Criticism of the Bible is very interesting. And I've read tons of it in school, and just because it's interesting, I want to know what people think about it. And I get why somebody would want a critical edition of the Bible like this, but I don't get why you would call it the Catholic Study Bible, as though this is the thing that represents what the church thinks about these books of the Bible and how the stuff is. And this is signed off on, it's my understanding, by the American Council of Catholic Bishops. I don't know if I got that acronym exactly right. So I'm going to level with you. I don't really understand what's going on with this Bible. I don't get it. I've reached out to Catholic friends and they don't totally get it. But here's what I know. If you want a critical edition of the Bible that deals with the notes and the material behind the text in a way that isn't really meant to be devotional or even academic in terms of dealing what's on the page, with what's on the page, like the maps and the cross references and all of that, I highly recommend this NET Bible Full Notes Edition by Thomas Nelson. This is an avalanche of words, but these notes here emphasize the textual origins and the controversies and the questions. It tackles some of the same stuff that you get here. It's just, I find the scholarship to be more in keeping with historic Christian assumptions as opposed to automatically defaulting to recent, fashionable, or, well, relatively recent. 80 years ago was probably the high water mark of these ideas. This defaults every time toward those ideas and gives the benefit of the doubt to academic criticism of the Bible. This defaults toward historic Christian assumptions while still being brutally honest about some of the strengths and weaknesses of manuscript tradition behind what's going on in the Bible you read. Now, I've got a couple of Catholic Bibles this one's by my desk. I don't have it here, that I like better. This isn't a study Bible, but it's a beautiful Catholic illustrated Bible. I use it and I like it. It has a really different feel than Protestant Bibles. It has cool art in it. And so I keep this one around. Also, that was a box I threw, not a Bible, by the way, so I think it's okay. Also, the Catholic Scriptures Study Bible is one that I've thumbed through and really thought was pretty solid. It to me looked more like one of these study Bibles that we've looked at with charts and facts and figures and color and wayfinding and things like that. And then on my phone, on the Kindle, I've got the Ignatius Catholic Study Bible. Just the New Testament is all I have there. And I think this is the one that I was using earlier this year. The notes here are much more reflective of what I have come to understand Catholics to think about the Bible and the Gospels, from actually going and talking with actual Catholics a lot and having friends who are Catholics. And these notes I found to be personally valuable for me in my study as well, above and beyond just some sense of curiosity I have about Catholics might see it, or how they might see it. It's just downright useful. Okay, for the win, buddy. What do you got? No, that's a loser.
Yep.
Yeah, Chronological Life Application Study Bible takes it, and we are both ashamed for not having gotten it right. Catholic Study Bible, 3rd edition. Proceed as you will, but my take would be this. It's not that it's too Catholic for my taste, it's that it's not Catholic enough. Moving forward. All right, buddy. Final Bible is the Church History Study Bible. It's an ESV. It's by Crossway, and I love it. It exudes from the moment you pull it out, classicness and oldness. It's not trying to compete with these other Bibles in that it doesn't have full color. It doesn't have a bunch of maps. It's just a simple, straightforward text presentation, because the highlight here is that the text is interacted with by some of the greatest minds from across the centuries of Christian history and from across the theological spectrum as well. So when I was messing around with this Bible, I was working in the book of Matthew. Here we are at the end of the Sermon on the Mount, Matthew 7, into the stuff with the centurion and everything that happens when Jesus comes off the mountain right after that. And just on these 2 pages, listen to this list of names of contributors: William Tyndale, Martin Lloyd-Jones, Martin Luther, Thomas Manton, Augustine of Hippo, John Gill, Matthew Henry, Charles Simeon, John Chrysostom, Jonathan Edwards, Cyril of Alexandria. How many of those names did you know?
Like 3-ish.
That's really good. It's okay if you don't know all of those names, but if you do know any of those names, you know it's pretty weird to have them in the same room. These are people who didn't necessarily think all of the same stuff. I know one of the people who was an editor on this project, and I know that not every name, every theologian on that list has the exact same set of theological beliefs as the people behind assembling this document. No, I think the idea here is to put historic Christian orthodoxy in front of the reader and just allow you to, one, interact with brilliant theological minds as they interact with the text, but two, also grapple with the reality that Christianity is a very diverse religion, and that somehow a whole bunch of people who come at it from different angles can all still fit comfortably inside the boundaries of historical, biblical, Christian orthodoxy. And so I love what this Bible sets out to do. I think it executes on it really well. And last year, my favorite Bible was one that set out to do something similar. This is a Christian Standard Bible by Holman. I think they call this the Ancient Faith Study Bible. Ancient Faith Study Bible. And it's a similar concept, but exclusively with church leaders from the very early centuries of Christianity. I think this is rad, and I think it's a worthwhile companion to pick up and have as a resource Bible that sits in your stack next to wherever you work and read through stuff. All right, pal, we got a little bit of housekeeping to do as we close things out. The final winner, once again, on weight was a Chronological Life Application Study Bible. The lightest one, if you wanted to carry something around with you, I think was this Global Study Bible, which I continue to think is a pretty cool idea. In terms of feel, the Reformation Study Bible Student Edition, it wins by a mile. But also, I mean, this one's cheating because it's the premium leather gift edition. So, I mean, it's silky. This one feels like a lifetime carry Bible, like it's going to break in like a baseball glove kind of thing. There are more affordable versions of this that don't feel quite so fancy, and there are probably less affordable versions of a bunch of these that feel way fancier if you're into that. In the little panel that I put up, I just gave you the price as shown, and then I'll give you a link to all of that down below as well. I haven't set up Amazon affiliate links yet, but I think I should learn how to do that. Theoretically, if I figure out how to do the Amazon affiliate link thing and you click one of the links in the show notes to buy it, I might get a couple cents kickback or something, which is helpful in offsetting the cost of buying a bunch of Bibles for these videos. If not, whatever, or if I don't even figure out how to do it. Okay, before I give my verdict on my favorite stuff, buddy, I think you're up. What'd you like?
My personal favorite, I think, I have to find it, was this one.
Okay, talk right into this. What'd you like about it?
I really liked all of the everything really in
So
it.
the way, yeah.
All of the little pictures and stuff. I just enjoyed.
Well, lots of them have pictures. What did you like about the pictures in the Archaeology study Bible more?
Well, they're more, they go along with the place, and they also give, if I can find one, like pictures of relics and things like that, which I also like.
Like artifacts and stuff. Well, I guess in some traditions they might call it a relic, but yeah, okay, I see what you're talking about. All right. What would be your favorite one in terms of feel? What did you think had the best feel to it?
I really liked this one.
What's it called?
The Courage for Life Study Bible for Men.
That's the way to do it.
Yep.
All right. What did you like about it?
I don't know. Something about the feel, I really like it. It's weird, but...
Yeah. No, the stitching around the outside's pretty neat.
Yeah.
And you thought the lion's cool, right?
It's awesome.
It's pretty cool. It looks like
it's a lion.
Logo for a football team or something. Okay. Yeah, sweet, man. Which one of these did you find to be the most overwhelming? Which one of these most was like, whoa, that just is not for you? Now, you can't count this one because I just eviscerated it, and that would be cheating. Other than that, which one did you resonate with the least?
I would say this one. I know it will work for a lot of people, but the whole, graphing thing doesn't really work for me.
Okay. Yeah, we have that in common. We're made of the same material. Okay, cool, man. Yeah, thank you for your feedback on all of that.
Yep.
For me, the Bibles I am most excited about this year, I'm with you. I really like the Archaeology study Bible. I think it's lovely. Pretty much all of these big Bible manufacturers, that sounded awful. Publishers? I don't know, they have to be manufactured, whatever. They've all figured out that there's a demand for Bibles like this that get you more into the history and the culture and geography and archaeology side of things. Of all of those, I think this is the most lovely presentation on the outside. I think it's really solid on the inside. I think I would give the nod to Holman's version of this. I think that's my favorite. And the names of those are escaping me right now. But yeah, I like all of them, and they all seem to contribute slightly different things. So I dig the Archaeology and History Bibles. I'm just a sucker for that. This one ranks somewhere in the middle for me among those. But the one that I'm going to definitely add to the rotation coming out of this year is this Church History Study Bible. The notes and resources are just so good and so theologically diverse, and it so undergirds a value that I hold about being excited about the shaded part, the massive shaded part of the Venn diagram between the historical, creedal, orthodox, biblical Christian traditions. The medium is the message, and I like what this one communicates in what it is. I also think it's really effective just for what it does. And I think I mentioned this already, but for me, this will companion up and compare with the Ancient Faith Study Bible by Holman in the CSB. I'm going to put both of these over here by my desk and make use of them. Moving forward, I was pleasantly surprised by the Experiencing God Bible. I don't know why I didn't immediately recognize that was connected to the old Blackaby book and the Bible study materials that go with it. I think that one is sort of the outlier here because it's more of personal Bible study being built into the text, where the big point of emphasis is just, hey, if you want to know how God is, a great place to start would be the Bible. So let's just go through the whole thing and see what he does on every page and see what he's like and keep our antenna out for that one thing. So I like the idea of an antenna out for one thing Bible. Maybe that doesn't quite fit in the study Bible genre, but this surprised me and impressed me more than expected. And then can you dig out that chronological study Bible for me? I really like this chronological life application study Bible as well. I do think it's worthy of a read through. This is a different way to orient your brain toward what's going on in the text. But this, for me, holds probably the most appeal for me, feeling like this is going to stretch me and I'm going to get something new out of my next read through of the Bible if I do it this way. I don't want to read a bunch of chronological study Bibles. In fact, I think it's something I only want to do all the way through once. And if I'm going to commit to that one time, I think this is the one that I want to commit to that with. So on the whole, there's a bunch of cool stuff. I get why everything up here would resonate with somebody. The only outlier is that I think this is just meant to resonate with people who are looking for a critical view of the text and the source material behind the text. And I get why it exists in the market, I suppose, because really pretty much every Bible you get, though I think most of them are really fair and very scholarly in their approach, there is kind of an underlying assumption that the text is reliable in most of these Bibles. And, well, I also think the text is reliable, so I'm going to resonate real well with that. If somebody wants right on the pages all the details about maybe why the text isn't what you thought it was or isn't so reliable, I guess go with that. I don't know. I'm trying to say something nice. I can't even think of anything nice. I found that Bible to be really, really off-putting. And again, recommend the Catholic Scriptures Study Bible as a great alternative. As always, thanks for going way down the rabbit hole with me on this stuff. I think looking at Bibles teaches us things about theology. I think it teaches us things about the history of the church, the state of the church. I think there are opportunities in how we talk about this kind of stuff or look at it to build understanding and unity from among different branches of the historic Christian family tree. And most of all, practically, I hope stuff like this just helps you think through what you might want to buy or give as a gift as well. So thanks for doing it with me. Thanks for hanging out with me, pal. I appreciate it. I'm embarrassed that we both lost our bet about what would be the heaviest Bible. We were humbled on that front. We'll do more Bible review videos of different kinds moving forward. So if you think I've earned it, I welcome your subscription to the channel. If not, it's totally fine as well. Okay, I'm Matt. Thanks for hanging out with me on my YouTube channel. Let's do this again soon.